Hello dear friends, this is your personal English coach Professor DC, and in this video we will be understanding an essay written by Ralph Waldo Emerson, and this is called Gifts. Before we actually understand the essay, let's get to know the writer a little bit. Ralph Waldo Emerson was an American essayist, lecturer, philosopher, and a poet who led the transcendentalist movement of the mid-19th century. He was born on May 25, 1803 in Boston, that is in United States, and he died on 27th of April 1882 in Concord, Massachusetts, again that is in United States. He had formulated some very famous quotes. Some of these are as follows: live in the sunshine, swim the sea, drink the wild air. Do not go where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. Self-trust is the first secret of success, and so on and so forth. Having understood the author's background, let's know his ideas about gifts. The title is pretty simple: Gifts. You and I have received gifts so many times. In most cases during our birthdays and festivals. And I'm very sure that you also must have given gifts to your friends on your birthdays and on various other special occasions. But when you decide what gift you should give, do you really look at others? Do you really look at the society and decide? Do you really conclude that, okay, because a ring is a suitable gift, I should give a ring. Okay, because everybody is giving a birthday card and maybe a pair of clothes, I think I should also give that because that looks good. So what is your thought process when you give gift to someone? Now the writer Ralph Waldo Emerson has some unique ideas when it comes to giving gifts. One last question I would like to ask you: when you give gifts, do you also expect that your friend whom you gave this gift also gives a gift in return when your time comes? In other words, is your act of giving gifts a selfish act or a selfless act? You will know why I asked you all these questions when we finish understanding the chapter. So let's begin. The essay starts with another quote. Gifts of one who loved me, it was high time they came. When he ceased to love me, time they stopped for shame. Let's understand the first two lines. Gift of one who loved me. So there is a person who loved the author, and that person used to give gifts. Just because that person loved the author, he gave gifts. But when he ceased means stopped to love me. When that person stopped loving the author, they did not give gifts anymore. The gifts stopped. And the last line, time they stopped for shame. When this incident happens, when this feeling creeps into the person of not giving the gift just because they don't love someone, according to the author, should put that person in shame. This occasion, this feeling is very unfortunate for the author, that a person only when he loves someone gives gifts. When that person stops loving, he doesn't give gifts. Alright, having understood the quote, let's begin with the essay. Alright, so we're gonna go slow and steady, sentence by sentence. And you must be observing some of the phrases in blue. Now these are the meanings of difficult words that I have mentioned to make it very easy for you to understand. Let's start with the first sentence. It is said that the world is in a state of bankruptcy, that the world owes the world more than the world can pay, and ought to go in chancery and be sold. Now you as a person can go bankrupt if you do not have money at all. If you owe money to others, more than you can have, more than you have, if you have to give more money than you actually have or can have, you can be called a bankrupt. So the writer begins by telling us that the world is in a state of bankruptcy. Now, to cover its own debts, to pay back all that the world has to give, it must go into chancery and be sold, which means if the world want to be debt free, it needs to sell itself. That is the situation. Now, what does this sentence explain us? As we know, the chapter's title is Gifts. So the writer, in the context of gift or gifts, is telling us that the world is bankrupt. Means there is an acute shortage of people who give gifts, and there is acute shortage of gifts themselves. Sentence number 2. I do not think this general insolvency, which involves in some sort all the population, to be the reason of difficulty experienced at Christmas and New Year and other times in bestowing gifts, since it is always so pleasant to be generous, though very vexatious to pay debts. Now the author is trying to highlight the two main festivals wherein people exchange gifts. One is Christmas, other is New Year. The author believes that the bankruptcy which he referred in sentence number 1 is not the real problem in exchanging gifts, in giving gifts actually, because even though people fall into huge debts, even though gift purchasing and gift giving makes people fall into worry, frustration and annoyance, when the time comes of giving gifts on these festivals, it feels great, it feels generous, and it feels pleasant. Sentence number 3. But the impediment lies in choosing. The author says the real issue in this scenario is choosing which gift to give, what to give to another person. The author says that if at any point in time it comes to my head that a present is due from me to somebody, I am puzzled what to give until the opportunity is gone. If one fine moment the author realizes that he has to give a gift to somebody, then he keeps on thinking, what should I give? What should I give? Is this good? Is this good? The author keeps on thinking until the opportunity, the moment, the festival or the occasion is gone. Sentence 5. Flowers and fruits are always fit presents. Flowers, because they are a proud assertion that a ray of beauty outvalues all the utilities of the world. Now the author concludes that if you give maybe a bunch of flower or even a single rose or something, or fruits, either you give flowers or fruits, they always look good as gifts, because both of these things are beautiful and they outvalue, which means be of greater value. They outvalue every other utilities. Utilities means something that we use. A thing of beauty outvalues the utilities of the world. Whatever we use in our day-to-day life doesn't hold that much value as that of beautiful things like flowers and fruits. Sentence 6. These gay natures contrast with somewhat stern countenance of ordinary nature. They are like music heard out of a workhouse. The meaning of gay is actually light-hearted and carefree. So the writer tells us that the people who choose to give flowers and fruits have a gay nature, carefree and light-hearted nature. Now think about people who have some serious features, that means serious and ordinary nature. The writer tells us that people with carefree nature stands out from people with serious nature, just like music being played from a workhouse. Now, what is a workhouse? Poor people who have no job, they live in it. And how if a music is played? It would feel good, isn't it? So similarly, if a person chooses to give flowers and fruits as gifts, then they would stand out from the people who usually give gifts, sticking to what the society may think of them. Sentence 7. Sentence 7 is, nature does not cocker us. We are children, not pets. She is not fond. Everything is dealt to us without fear or favor, after severe universal laws. Now, whom do we pamper? We pamper our pets. We pamper our dog and cat. But for Mother Nature, we are not pets. We are children, we are human beings. And all our dealings with nature is done by natural laws, which are sometimes severe or strict. Nature is not fond of us that it will constantly do everything in our advantage. It is always dealt to us, or we can say given to us, without fear or favor, by following strict natural rules. Next, yet these delicate flowers look like the frolic and interference of love and beauty. So despite of the fact that nature gives everything to us, not by pampering but following the strict universal laws, flowers are a commodity that looks as if nature loves us and nature wants us to be cheerful, and flowers look like they indicate 50% love, 50% beauty. Next sentence, men used to tell us that we love flattery, even though we are not deceived by it, but it shows that we are of importance enough to be quoted. Men used to tell us means whomever the author met. Most people told the author that they loved insincere praise, which is also called flattery. Now, people used to tell the author that they loved flattery even though they were not cheated by it, but only because they got some attention. So people told the author that they loved flattery because they got some attention. Next sentence. Something like that pleasure the flowers give us. What am I to whom these sweet hints are addressed? So the author is trying to tell us that when we give flowers to someone, that someone feels important. People feel great when they receive flowers from someone. And the author asks, what is he to someone whom flowers are given, to whom importance is given? In the 11th sentence, the author shifts his attention from fruits to flowers. He says flowers are acceptable gifts because they are the flowers of commodities. Fruits are acceptable gifts because they are the flower of commodities and admit of fantastic values being attached to them. The writer is trying to compare fruits and flowers. We know that flower indicated beauty and love. But what about fruits? Why do people accept fruits as gifts? Because in the writer's words, they are flower of commodities. They are beautiful living things which bear some value. Obviously, when you eat fruit, you get its advantages. So it has some fantastic values attached to it, and that makes fruits an acceptable gifts. 12th sentence, if a man should send to me to come 100 miles to visit him, and should set before me a basket of fine summer fruit, I should think there was some proportion between the labor and the reward. Again, here the writer is trying to explain why fruits can fit to be one of the best gifts. Let's replace writer with you for an instance. If you walk 100 miles to your friend's place, and if your friend who was already thinking about you, who was already ready for your arrival, has kept nice plate of fruits for your arrival, for your welcome, how would you feel? You will feel great, isn't it? So similarly, the writer tells us that if a person calls him who's living 100 miles away, if a person invites the author would definitely travel 100 miles to visit him. But when the author would see summer fruit that his friend might have kept ready for him, then the author would think that my labor or my hard work is not wasted. My labor of traveling 100 miles is rewarded by nice summer fruit, nice basket of fine summer fruit. Now that marks the end of first paragraph. Sentence number 13. For common gifts, necessity makes pertinences and beauty every day, and one is glad when an imperative leaves him no option. Since if the man at the door have no shoes, you have not to consider whether you could procure him a paint box. So the writer says sometimes you look at the person in front of you and then decide what you should give to that person. What is the necessity of that person? And this event makes the gift relevant and beautiful at the same time. And the writer cites an example here. For example, there is a person standing at your door and you clearly see that the person does not have shoes. He is not wearing his shoes. He has not put on his shoes. So when you have a chance to give him or her a gift, you don't have to think what you should give to that person, because it's very clear the person is not having shoes. Let's give shoes. Now shoes become relevant as well as beautiful, and you as a gift giver have no option left. So you can't think that, alright, this person has no shoes, but I want to give him a gift, so why don't I give him a paint box? No, that's the wrong thought process. It's his necessity, and so you give away whatever he or she requires. In continuation to that, sentence number 14. And as it is always pleasing to see a man eat bread, there is a typo which I'll correct it, or drink water in the house or out of doors, so it is always a great satisfaction to supply these first wants. Obviously, when you see another person happy, you yourself feel contented and satisfied. The writer says it is pleasing when you know that a person is having a good time in his home. The person is eating, drinking, and so you know that the basic requirements of the person is in place already, and that gives you contentment, that gives you satisfaction. And so the writer says that it's always wise to give away the basic requirement of the person in need. And then the writer says necessity does everything well. When you're aware about the other person's requirement, there is no confusion at all. Next sentence, in our condition of universal dependence, it seems heroic to let the petitioner be the judge of his necessity and to give all that is asked, though at great inconvenience. Universal dependence in a universe where we are dependent on each other. The writer uses this term. We are living in a condition of dependence. We are dependent on each other for living, for survival. And when we are living in such an era, the best thing to do while you are deciding a gift is ask that person, what do you want for gift? And give that person whatever he or she desires, even if it is a great inconvenience to you. And metaphorically, the author has said, let the petitioner be the judge of his necessity. Who is a petitioner? A person who makes a formal application to the judge. So the writer says, let the petitioner be the judge of his necessity and tell us what he or she wants. And if you give away whatever that person requires, it would feel heroic. If it be a fantastic desire, it is better to leave to others the office of punishing him. If the person who is acting as a petitioner, if the person whom you asked as to what gift he wants, if his desire is huge, is fantastic, and if you think you cannot give that person what he or she wants, it's better to leave the duty of serving him to others. Metaphorically, duty of punishing him to others. Sentence 18. I can think of many paths I should prefer, playing to that of the Furies. The writer can think of many such occasions or many incidents wherein he should delegate or give away the act of bestowing gifts to others. Next to things of necessity, the rule for a gift which one of my friends prescribed is that we might convey to some person that which properly belonged to his character and was easily associated with him in thought. Now, in the previous paragraph, we saw that the writer talked about necessity. When you know that a person requires something, just give what he or she wants. So that is rule number 1, which is the next rule of giving gifts. Is explained in sentence number 19, that if I want to give gift to someone, we should ensure that the gift suits his character, suits his thoughts, and suits his desires. So what is the rule number 2 of giving gifts? The gift should be such that it should match his hobbies, passions, and desires. Sentence number 20. But our tokens of compliment and love are for the most part barbarous. The writer feels that we don't follow rule number 1 or 2. We don't see whether the person requires something or not. We don't even see whether the gift belongs to his character or the gift will help him in his desires, thoughts, and passions. Whatever we are giving is extremely brutal, is extremely invalid. Our symbol of admiration, which is nothing but gifts, are for the most part not right. Sentence 21. Rings and other jewels are not gifts but apologies for gifts. Now the writer must have seen people giving rings and jewelries and other ornaments. Now the writer observed that for every occasion which was grand, people used to exchange jewelry and rings and other garments, which obviously doesn't follow writer's rule number 1 or 2. So the author has put it in this way: these things are not gifts but apologies for gifts. I am sorry, I could not decide whether you need something or not. I could not decide whether this gift will belong to your character or not, but I had to give a gift, so I'm giving you a ring or jewels. So these are just apologies. Now personally, I love sentence number 22, which is, the only gift is a portion of thyself. Thou must bleed for me. Therefore the poet brings his poem, the shepherd his lamb, the farmer corn, the miner a gem, the sailor coral and shells, the painter his picture, the girl a handkerchief of her own sewing. The author feels that the gift that you give to someone should be a part of your own craft, your own skill, your own self. And metaphorically he says, you must bleed for me. And to explain this point in detail, he gives examples of various people. If I am a poet, as a gift I would give you a poem. If I'm a shepherd, as a gift I would give you my lamb. If I'm a farmer, I would give you something that I grow. For example, corn. If I'm a miner, I would find a gem for you and gift wrap it and give it to you. If I'm a sailor, I would sail deep dive into the sea and find some corals and shells and give it to you. If I'm a painter, I would paint a picture for you. If I'm a girl who knows sewing, then I would sew a handkerchief for you. In short, you should give a gift which also represents your art, your skill, and your own self. Sentence number 23. This is right and pleasing, for it restores society in so far to its primary basis, when a man's biography is conveyed in his gift, and every man's wealth is an index of his merit. The writer believes that if you give some part of yourself as a gift, it is pleasing, it gives happiness to the person who receives it, because that is what makes up a society. What is a society made of? People with different talents, people with different crafts. I love the usage of words here. When a man's biography, which means his own craft, his own skill, is given as gift, and all of this would also restore a society, because if each and every person followed that, then the society which does not, the first society would stand out, because each and every person's wealth or income or money would indicate his goodness. So in simple words, the author believes that you should give a gift which should be indicating yourself. Next sentence, and a very interesting one, but it is a cold, lifeless business. When you go to the shops to buy me something which does not represent your life and talent, but a goldsmith's. Now, who is a goldsmith? A person who makes gold articles. So these days when marriages happen in India, what do people usually buy? Necklace and earrings and ornaments. The writer believes that this is lifeless and this is cold. There are no feelings in buying such gifts, because whatever you are buying does not represent you in your life, but it represents a goldsmith's skill, goldsmith's craft, and his life history. Next sentence, this is fit for kings and rich men who represent kings and a false state of property, to make presents of gold and silver stuffs as a kind of symbolical sin offering or payment of blackmail. The writer believes that when you get into the shop full of jewelry and ornaments, and when you buy those gifts, it is really lifeless, and such gifts is suitable or looks good on whom? It looks good only for kings and filthy rich people who represents the king. Now the people who buy such expensive gifts, which actually represents the goldsmith's biography, what do they indicate? They indicate that they are giving these gifts as a payment of blackmail or to abolish sins, kind of symbolical sin offering. In short, the writer tells us that getting into a shop full of ornaments and jewels and buying those gifts, which is a result of the hard work of a goldsmith, is completely illogical. It only is suitable for the kings and rich people. Next sentence. The law of benefits is a difficult channel which requires careful sailing or rude boats. When can a person be benefited? When can a person receive advantages? Now there is a rule which is difficult according to the writer. To make sure that a person receives benefits, you have to think carefully. You have to introspect, look at the requirements of that person. Look at how you can offer that person, what you can offer that person. And therefore, as another metaphor, the writer compares the law with that of an event where you have some rough and tough boats sailing through a difficult water channel. Sentence 27, it is not the office of a man to receive gifts. Now, everywhere where it indicates duty, the writer has mentioned office. It's not the duty of a man to take gifts. Okay, before that, where 25th sentence ends, that is the end of the second paragraph. I hope it's the same in your textbooks, and this is the beginning of the third paragraph, and we are in sentence number 27. How dare you give them? We wish to be self-sustained. We do not quite forgive a giver. Now I'm reading out all these sentences as one because it represents only one meaning, which I'll tell you in few seconds. Sentence 30 says, the hand that feeds us is in some danger of being bitten. We can receive anything from love, for that is a way of receiving it from ourselves, but not from anyone who assumes to bestow. Alright, so all these sentences have only one meaning. As I said before, the writer thinks that the law of benefits, or the practice of giving and receiving, is a very delicate and fragile job that needs careful judgment. Now then the writer talks about a person who has a lot of self-respect. If such a person is given gift, which it seems like it is not from love, it is from a superior attitude, then that person who has immense self-respect will not receive at all. So if the person who has a lot of self-respect is given gift with some attitude, then that person will be hurt and humiliated, and therefore there is a risk. And because he is hurt, now he is not in position to forgive the person who gave him the gift. Now sentence number 31 says, if anyone who is assuming to bestow or present for the sake of bestowing, if there's a person who gives gift with an attitude, then the receiver would not feel like taking the gift because of the self-respect that he has. And the writer has given some examples. The hand that feeds us is in some danger of being bitten. The hand that feeds us is no one but the gift giver. Being bitten by whom? Being bitten by the person who receives gifts. In short, the person who receives gifts from another person who is selfish will feel hurt, is what the writer is trying to convey. We sometimes hate the meat which we eat because there seems something of degrading dependence in living by it. The writer tells us that when we eat flesh, when we eat meat, we might feel a little bit of guilt because the same meat might have been looked after by someone else, and it is someone else's effort and investment. And then we have a quote, brother, if Jove to thee a present make, take heed that from his hands you nothing take. Now the author believes that there is another risk associated with receiving gifts. For example, your friend gives you a gift on one fine occasion. Then a nice etiquette, a nice manner is not to expect anything else from that friend, because our expectations are limitless. So by this quote, the author is trying to tell us that a nice etiquette of receiving gift is, if someone gives you a gift, you should make a point not to ask for more, not to take anything else from that person. This is one of the finest principles of receiving gift. Sentence 33, we ask the whole, nothing less will content us. Which means our expectation from others has always been limitless. We want more and more things from other people. Next sentence, we arraign the society. We arraign society if it do not give us, beside earth and fire and water, opportunity, love, reverence, and objects of veneration. So continuing his point on receiving gifts, the author is trying to convey that first we expect more and more from others, and if they do not deliver what we expect, then we start blaming the society. The author believes that such expectations, such desires and wishes come out only from a person who is greedy, who is lazy, and the author believes that such feelings are not good at all. Alright, this marks the end of third paragraph. Now we begin with the fourth paragraph. Moving on with the fourth paragraph. He's a good man who can receive gift well. The writer says that if a person has a capability to receive any kind of gift with respect and dignity, we can call that person as a virtuous person or a good man. We are either glad or sorry at a gift, and both emotions are unbecoming, meaning unattractive. So what happens when you receive a gift? If you like the gift, you become very happy, or if you don't like the gift, you feel, why did I get this gift? You feel sorry. And according to the writer, both these emotions, being extremely happy and being sorry or sad or unhappy, they are unattractive feelings. They are not good. Some violence, I think, is done, some degradation born when I rejoice or grieve at a gift. Now, according to the writer, both these feelings might hurt the person who gives you the gifts. If you behave this way, if you are extremely happy or extremely sorry, you are violent to the person who gives you. I'm sorry when my independence is invaded, or when a gift comes from such as do not know my spirit, and so the act is not supported. And if the gift pleases me overmuch, then I should be ashamed that the donor should read my heart and see that I love his commodity and not him. Now, the writer has explained why these feelings are unattractive. He says that when you feel sorry, what signals do you send to the person who gives you a gift? You feel the person doesn't know my soul really well. The person doesn't know me well, and therefore he doesn't know what kind of gift I would like, and so I don't support his gift, and so I am sorry. And why the feeling of being extremely glad is also violent is because when your friend gives you a gift, you become extremely happy looking at the gift. It would just mean that you don't really like your friend as a person, but you like his commodity, you like his gift, and not him or not her. Now the writer goes ahead and defines how the gifts and the process of giving and receiving gifts should be. The gift to be true must be the flowing of the giver unto me, correspondent to my flowing unto him. According to the writer, the act of giving and receiving gifts should have a natural flow. The emotions should just flow naturally. When the waters are at level, then my goods pass to him and his to me. So you can imagine two separate water bodies. And for example, you can imagine a log which is floating on one of the water body. When is it possible for a wooden log to float naturally from one water body to another? Obviously, when the water level is the same. So similarly, the writer is trying to explain us metaphorically that when you are having the same frequency as your friend, when your wavelength matches, the gifts, they also pass on naturally. All his are mine, all mine are his. We accept that person's gift wholeheartedly as our own. I say to him, how can you give me this pot of oil or this flagon of wine when all your oil and wine is mine? Which belief of mine this gift seems to deny? We can upfrontly tell that person that everything is yours is mine and everything that's mine is yours. So why are you giving me these gifts? Hence the fitness of beautiful, not useful things for gifts. So in this case, when, say for example, there's a person A and person B and they are intimate friends, they are close friends. Now in such a relation, we don't really look at the usefulness of any gift. It's just the beauty of the relation that flows naturally. This giving is flat usurpation, and therefore when a beneficiary is ungrateful, as all beneficiaries, this giving is flat usurpation, and therefore when the beneficiary is ungrateful, as all beneficiaries hate all Timmons. Not at all considering the value of the gift, but looking back the greatest to it was taken from, I rather sympathize with the beneficiary than with the anger of my lord Timon. Now friends, Timon is a character of Shakespeare's play. Timon of Athens was his play, and the writer has cited his name here to explain the concept clearly. Now Timon was a friendly nobleman, and because of his nature he had a lot of friends. Now we are still talking about person A and person B, and when there is exchange of gifts in between them, this is what happens. The beneficiary or the person who is receiving the gift would think of these gifts as small. The beneficiary would want a major portion of what the giver has. Now this is all driven by greed. So what does this sentence mean? When the beneficiary is ungrateful, or we can say thankless, when the beneficiary does not thank the giver, he can also have some anger for the gift and the giver. So the beneficiary will have two negative feelings in such case. One is ungratefulness and second is anger. Next sentence, for the expectation of gratitude is mean and continually punished by the total insensibility of the obliged person. The writer says expecting gratitude from someone is being selfish, and the same expectation is continuously punished by a person who is unaware. So a person who is unaware never thanks. It is a great happiness to get off without injury and heartburning from one who has had the ill luck to be served by you. So to make it very simple, the writer is advising us to stay away from people who are thankless or ungrateful. It is very onerous business, this of being served, and debtor naturally wishes to give you a slap. According to the writer, this is a very heavy or burdensome business. The writer says this is a difficult and a troublesome task. And when such confusions happen, when there is a lack of unawareness between two people, the receiver or the borrower, we can say, wishes to give you a slap, apart from being ungrateful. A golden text for these gentlemen is that which I so admire in the Buddhist who never thanks and who says, do not flatter your benefactor. The writer strongly believes in one of the Buddhist quotes which state, do not flatter your benefactors. Meaning, you should never compliment or praise a person who gives you money or who gives you anything. Never praise a benefactor. Now, this sentence explains the equanimity that a person should have when receiving gifts. The person should not be completely carried away when he receives a gift. He should maintain an equal status, not to be extremely delighted, not to be extremely sorry. With that being said, this is the end of fourth paragraph. The reason of these discords I conceive to be that there is no commensurability between a man and any gift. Why is there lack of harmony? Why is there confusion? Why is there disturbance? Now, the writer cites a simple reason. The writer says, take a person and assume that you have to give a gift to him or her. How will you measure what kind of gift that person wants? There is no formula. You cannot measure. You cannot compare a person with a gift. You can never say that, okay, this person will require this gift. This person will require a gift that is of XYZ value. And writer believes that because of this confusion, there is lack of harmony. Because of the commensurability, there is no standard by which you can compare or you can tally a man with a gift. You cannot give anything to a magnanimous person. According to the writer, if a person is magnanimous, what is magnanimous? It is generous or forgiving, especially to his or her own rival, his or her own enemy. If you see a generous person, you just can't give anything. After you have served him, he at once puts you in debt by his magnanimity. The person always is generous, forgiving, and good to you. So after you have helped that person, or here served also means presented something to that person, or you can say done your duties against or for that person, that person still behaves generous because after all he or she is magnanimous. The service a man renders his friend is trivial and selfish compared with the service he knows his friend stood in readiness to yield him, alike before he had begun to serve his friend and now also. Now to understand this sentence, take two persons. One person who is completely generous and would always be there whenever you want him or her, and there's another person who gives gifts. Let's call person A and person B. Person B is generous, person A is a gift giver. So the writer says that person A will always be small, or we can say trivial, or we can say unimportant and selfish. Person A would always be seen as someone who is small, selfish and trivial as compared to person B, because person B, being generous, being magnanimous, always stood the test of time and was always ready to help you out. Now the feeling of helping other person, the feeling of being kind is much more than just giving gifts, is what the writer means. Compared with that goodwill I bear my friend, the benefit it is in my power to render him seems small. So it's the same thing. Person A's act of giving seems small as compared to person B's goodwill and kindness. In short, kindness and being with another person during his test of time is way bigger than just giving gifts, according to the writer. Besides, our action on each other, good as well as evil, is so incidental and at random that we can seldom hear the acknowledgements of any person who would thank us for a benefit without some shame and humiliation. Let's break this complicated sentence into parts. Let's understand the first part. Besides our action on each other who? Person A's action on person B and person B's actions on person A. Good as well as evil, whether the action is good or evil. So what about that? What is the writer trying to convey? It's so incidental and at random. Incidental means unimportant and random. So the actions that person A does to B and B does to A is so small and random that we hardly hear a thank you. We rarely hear the grateful words of other person. And while we not hear the grateful words, we also don't feel shame and embarrassment. So to make this sentence very simple, the actions going on in between person A and B is so small and unimportant and random that we hardly hear the grateful words, and we do that without any embarrassment. We can rarely strike a direct stroke, but must be content with an oblique one. We seldom have the satisfaction of yielding a direct benefit, which is directly received. The writer says, so when it comes to giving gifts, the writer, before a few lines, he just stated that it's difficult to identify what kind of gift a person would want, and therefore we give a gift that is not in line with his passions or nature, So metaphorically, he says, we can rarely strike a direct stroke. We hardly give a gift that the person requires, but we must be satisfied with an oblique one, with whatever we give, judging that person's nature or passion. And in this process, we hardly feel happy to give or provide something to other person which he received wholeheartedly. But the rectitude scatters favors on every side without knowing it, and receives with wonder the thanks of all people. So what happens eventually in this process? You give a gift to a person, unable to judge what that person requires or needs, but still you get thanks. And what is the reason? Because the person who received the gift knows that you were being good, you were being helpful, you had some rectitude. So the writer says the feeling of goodness scatters everywhere when you give a gift to someone, and makes the person in front of you wonder and thank as well. Moving on, I believe this is the end of the 5th paragraph. Last paragraph, sentence number 57. I fear to breathe any treason against the majesty of love, which is the genius and God of gifts, and to whom we must not affect to prescribe. In simple words, the writer is trying to explain that he cannot commit any crime against love. And then he describes love. Love is genius and the main characteristic we look out for while giving gifts. So he calls love God of gifts. And love cannot be imposed on anyone. Let him give kingdoms or flower leaves indifferently to whoever is giving gifts. The writer says, let that person give you anything without love. Let him give kingdoms or flower leaves indifferently without any interest. The writer is telling us that in whichever manner the gifts come to us, we must embrace them with love. There are persons from whom we may always expect fairy tokens. Let us not cease to expect them. Obviously, in our lives, people who are close to us, we expect nice and elegant gifts from them, and the writer is asking us to continue expecting the same. The writer says this is prerogative and not to be limited by our municipal rules. It is our right to expect elegant and nice gifts from the person we are close to, and there are no rules surrounding that feeling. For the rest, I like to see that we cannot be bought and sold. The writer explains that for the remaining part, for the remaining feelings, apart from expecting great gifts, nobody can take us for granted. The best of hospitality and of generosity is also not in the will, but in fate. According to the writer, if a person is good to us and serves us very well, and if the person is very generous, the writer tells that it is not in his will, it is not in his desire, but in the destiny, in our own luck. I find that I am not much to you, you do not need me, you do not feel me, then I am thrust out of doors, though you proffer me house and lands. The writer explains that if a person does not really feel us, or does not value us, or does not require us, so it means that we are very well aware that the person does not love us. And if the same person offers us huge gifts like houses and lands, how would you feel? You would feel as if you are pushed out of doors. You would feel that whichever gifts are given, they're all without love. No services are of any value, but only likeness. According to the writer, it's not about the value of service or gifts that the person offers. It's about how much similarity or resemblance you have with that person. When I have attempted to join myself to others by services, it proved an intellectual trick. No more. So the writer thought, okay, let me help others, and with that I will meet more and more people. Let me keep on helping people, let me give them what they need, and by that I will meet them and know them. But the person who the writer met thought it to be a trick. So the writer says it proved to be a trick, an intelligent trick. And then the writer says, no more, I'm not gonna do that anymore. They eat your service like apples and leave you out. Means they take whatever you give them and then they forget you. They use you completely and they leave you out. But love them and they feel you and delight in you all the time. The writer says that if you want to get along with people, if you want to meet them and become one with them, just love them. If you love them, they will feel you and they will be delighted to meet you and be with you all the time. And that marks the end of the last paragraph. Alright friends, this is the end of the essay called Gifts, written by Ralph Waldo Emerson. If in case you have any doubts or questions, do let me know and I will be happy to help you. I hope you have a wonderful day.